You are not more than your sport. I know that's something that you've heard quite a bit, and maybe you've said it over and over again because you've heard it over and over again and you just really haven't thought about it, but you're not more than your sport. And today I'm going to tell you why. Now, before I get into it, I want to go ahead and omit these things that I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about you being a son, you being a daughter, you being a granddaughter, you being a nephew, you being a niece. Those things you were born into, you're going to be that regardless. But there's some other things that's been packaged to being a student athlete that you can easily fall victim to thinking that, oh, I'm that too. And you're not. And you're not. Today I'm going to explain why. Picture being a student athlete like, picture being a student athlete is like your hand, right? Think about it. The blood from your heart, I did so in anatomy, but follow me. The blood from your heart gets pumped and it goes out to different extremities, right? And it goes out to those extremities because you're using it. If you didn't use it, what happens? It atrophies. That means it does the exact opposite of build muscle. It atrophies. That means that it's not using, it's communicating back to your heart that we're not using this anymore. It communicates back to your heart and your central nervous system, your brain, that it's not using it anymore. So what do we do if we don't use it anymore? We don't send blood to that area anymore because we're not using it. We're going to use this blood to go to areas that we're actually using. That's why you see, case in point being, if someone has a cast on, though there's blood that's going to that area, they're not using it on a regular basis. So what happens when you take that cast off? Your arm looks skinnier. Your leg looks skinnier. Whatever you have a cast on looks skinnier because you haven't been using it. It has atrophied. You know, when you see these people, weekend warriors, there it is, weekend warriors, and they go out there and they think they're still an athlete. They go out there, they may skip a weekend and they go out there every other weekend or once a month. What happens to those people more often times than not? They get injured. They get injured. Why? Because they are pushing their bodies to do something that it hasn't been doing in a while. So they end up breaking something. They end up spraining. They end up pulling a muscle because they're not using that on a regular basis. And what I'm saying to you is when they say you're more than an athlete, you start to think that you're still those things that you were before being an athlete. You know, to motivate you to get better stats or to perform better, a lot of times they say you need to practice more. Keep going. Just keep going. Just now it's being glamorized that you don't have a social life. I don't have time for social life. I'm just about basketball. I'm just about this. Or just about that. And it sounds good in theory. But the fact of the matter is, what you're doing is you're recruiting blood to that one area that you're using it in. You're not recruiting blood to the area of your social life. And you're just recruiting a little bit of blood to maybe your academics because that's the area that you just need to be eligible. I've never heard anyone, a coach especially, motivate a kid to take a tougher class, to take a tougher major. As long as you're eligible, it's cool. And that's no knock against coaches. Again, if you've seen my YouTube videos since 2016, coaches were the only ones to get across to me. So I cannot bash coaches. Teachers couldn't do it. My coaches were. That's not their job as far as to motivate you as far as classes are concerned. But what I'm saying is, more oftentimes than not, the student athletes that I get to work with and my teammates growing up, they weren't getting challenged by their coaches to be better students, past eligibility. They were challenged being better ball players, better at their sport. Right? So that area, you're building muscle on that side. But as far as building muscle as it relates to academics, not so much. As far as social life, not so much. I used to work at a university that was so against their student athletes having social life. There was a hard rule that they couldn't be a part of any fraternities. They couldn't be a part of any fraternities. They couldn't be a part of any sororities. I've seen this happen. So what does that happen? So what does that mean as it relates to you being more than your sport? You're atrophying in that area. You have a deficiency in that area, right? And then we get into a deeper topic. We get into the deeper topic of what you learn being a student athlete. A lot of times, and hear me, I was a student athlete. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. Failed the 6th grade, 8th grade, special education classes. They would try to put me up on Ritalin and everything else. And that's before I started playing sports. But when I started playing sports, they stopped talking about that kind of stuff, right? All of a sudden, I had a passion, I had a motivation to actually get my education taken care of. And I parlayed that into a full ride scholarship at not one, but 2 different schools. Right? And then I parlayed that into getting a master's degree. So I believe in the whole student athlete journey and what it can do for you. But I think a lot of times people give you too much credit. People give you too much credit. They'll say stuff like, and you've heard this, oh, he's more than a sport. And what you learn being a student athlete, you learn leadership skills. You learn how to lead a team. You learn how to deal with conflict resolution. You learn how all that stuff. You have the potential to learn that. But I'm looking back at my teammates that I played basketball with in high school and college. And some of the things that someone may say I got from the sport, they didn't get. They're still introverted. They still don't like speaking out in public. They're still not organized. They don't have any type of extensive history of goal setting and meeting goals and working with others. That's not the case. But it sounds good on paper, so we perpetuate it. And it's one of those things that we can justify keeping you in the gym that long. A lot of times you would think, if you didn't know any better, you would think that through osmosis, you're going to get these leadership skills. Through osmosis, you're gonna be a better critical thinker because you play a sport, and it just, when you're in the gym that long, it just sprinkles from the sky. It just falls in your lap, and now you got it. You're like a bug. It's like, oh, you got it now. That's not how this works. Now, this YouTube video may seem like I'm trying to bash or I'm trying to be negative, and that's not the case either. What I'm saying is, in order for you to get these skills, in order for you to be more than your sport, you have got to invest outside of your sport. Too oftentimes, sports is like sports, especially when you're in college. It's like your own cohort. It's a silo, a room that's away from the rest of the university. You only go into the rest of the university when you absolutely have to. And that doesn't develop you as a person. You have got to get out there and you have got to learn those skills. They'll say stuff like, I learned how to be a leader. How does that teach you how to be a leader when I'm having conversations with student athletes on a regular basis that say, I don't like talking to NARPs? Well, how can you lead if you don't like talking to NARPs, non-athletic regular people? How can you do that? You need experience dealing with regular people that don't give a flying flip about sports at all in order to be the very best student athlete you can be. You need experience doing that. You need experience that people don't even care about sports. They don't watch sports. You need experiences like that if you want to be the very best you can be, because guess what? Once you get done with your eligibility, guess who you're going to be working with? A lot of non-athletic regular people. So by you quarantining yourself off, thinking that you have nothing in common with these people because they don't have a jersey on and they're not being chased with the ball in their hand or throwing the ball or hitting the ball or running after somebody with the ball or doing somersaults off the balance beam or volleying or hitting the home, whatever it is, you are settling yourself short. And I'm getting tired of people giving blanketed statements saying you're more than your sport, even though you haven't worked to be more than your sport. And this is a general statement. This doesn't apply to everyone, but the take-home pay, it applies to a lot of people. Say if you're an artist, you came into college, you want to be an artist. If you're not putting doggone pencil to sketch pad and working on that thing and prioritizing time to do those things, you can't just look up after your senior year and be like, I'm an artist. No, you're not. You got to catch up. You are what you do most often. You are what you do most often, your actions. If you lie a lot, you're a liar. You can fancy yourself as being, I'm a truthful, high character person. You can do that, but what you do the most is what you are. It's what you are. And what I'm telling you is you need to start prioritizing these other things that you want to develop in. And here's a spoiler alert. No one's going to do that for you. Nah, nobody's going to do that. No one's going to challenge you to do that for you. No one's going to do that. You have to make sure you prioritize it for yourself. I say it in all my videos. I've been saying it since 2016. At the end of the day, whose name is going to be written at the bottom of that receipt? You. Yours. Who's going to be sliding their card paying for this meal? You. Yours. And what I'm saying is, and that's an example I'm using as far as this is your process. It's about being a student athlete. You're going to sign your name at the end of the day. At the end of the day, once you graduate, no one's going to be checking back in with you. Once you graduate, ain't nobody going to be checking back in with you. You think coach going to be all like, hey, Sarah, how you doing today? You think he's going to be doing that? There's a new freshman coming in every year. You gotta have ownership over your process. And that's not shaming coach either. Coach got other things to do. What I'm saying is, if this is all going to fall on you, then shouldn't you have a say-so? Shouldn't you have a say-so on how you spend your time? Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to tell you don't work on your sport. Work on your sport. But don't be walking in here with such bravado thinking that, oh, well, I'm more than my sport just by default. Just because I say I am. Just because I heard this celebrity say it on TV that now I'm more than my sport. You are not more than your sport unless you work on more than your sport. Big Brother Bell tried to set you straight. I want the very best for you. Okay? You got to do that. You got to devote time to those things if they're valuable. If your social life is valuable, you got to devote time to it. If that major is valuable to you, you got to devote time to it. Internship, you got to devote time to it. You just don't get to say you're more than a sport just by just saying that. I know it sounds cool, but it's not factual. It's not reality.